While it may not be a symbol for this game like it is for New Vegas, the NCR Ranger seemed like it would fit well in Fallout 4 considering the amazing modding capabilities this game has. Therefore, I'm going to ask if you can beat Fallout 4 as an NCR Ranger. Jumping straight into things, I tried to make a character that somewhat matched the character I used for my Fallout New Vegas run, and kinda failed because I didn't really feel like sculpting the face. Went ahead and started assigning special stats, which was kind of weird this time around. I wasn't exactly sure what all I was going to be using for this run. I mostly only had a rule of using the NCR Ranger's armor and the Ranger Sequoia, both of which I modded into the game, so I wasn't really sure if I wanted to add other weapons down the line. Spoiler alert, I did. So, starting off, spawning into the vault, which I, of course, skip using my mod because I hate the pre-war segment and it doesn't make sense for an NCR Ranger to, wake up in a vault. I headed off to Sanctuary to start looting some crafting materials and all that since I would probably need it later on for something. I didn't really know what I was going to be doing at the beginning of the run because I had zero planning for this run whatsoever. Of course, I stopped by Red Rocket, which is my favorite place to build my own little settlement at the beginning of the game, and spent some time kind of thinking about how I was going to go about things. See, the NCR armor that I have from one of my mods is only accessible after you've rescued Nick, and considering, I can't really get Nick without a weapon because I'm pretty sure it's impossible to go through that entire vault without killing anything except for Dino, I wasn't really sure what I was going to be doing yet, so I just spent some time wandering around and picking up random meaningless things and just doing regular Fallout 4 tasks, like making Trudy and her son, kill people. Yeah, it's probably fine. I mean, it's good for his conscience. I made my way over to Diamond City because I ended up checking my, description page on Nexus for the Ranger Sequoia, and conveniently, it can be found in Kellogg's house, just sitting there. Now, the NCR Ranger armor, which is from an entirely different mod, can't be accessed until I've rescued Nick because it's in the little hidden vault thingy behind the wall in Kellogg's house, but the Ranger Sequoia isn't, which means that I now have a gun. And it ends up using ammo from Far Harbor. So I used the console command to add ammo to my inventory. I then used console commands again to just remove caps from my inventory based on the amount that the game said the ammo costed. I figured this is fair, and I've used this in multiple other runs before, so I immediately went over and started testing out the weapon on spawn. This thing did a staggering 100 damage with no perks and no upgrades, which is insanely unbalanced for Fallout 4, I completely admit that, but I also use a lot of difficulty enhancing mods whenever I do any of these challenges, so I figure it's fair, since I also don't have armor for the time being. And even later in the run, you will see, just because my weapons are good does not save me from death. I died more times in just the beginning segments here than I do normally ever. I was getting killed in probably 3 to 4 bullets from all the triggermen using regular SMGs. That's how these damage difficulty mods work that I use. It makes the game insanely harder, but it also buffs me as well to keep it somewhat realistic and somewhat fair. I do double damage to all enemies on very hard. All enemies do double damage to me, which I believe, kind of makes the game fair and difficult. It makes armor kind of redundant because no matter how good your armor is, even in power armor, regular enemies can just straight up shred you instantaneously. So this is how I like to roll on my challenges for Fallout 4. New Vegas is a lot different. I just have enemy enhancing mods there, so I just, we're gonna just pretend that New Vegas isn't in this situation. Anyways, by now I've made it through the vault completely naked and rescued Nick, which means that I can go back to Diamond City and finally go and shop for some stim packs. Holy shit, the vault was difficult because I neglected to mention that I went in there with 8 stim packs, and I really didn't find that many more while I was down there, so I was pretty much broke when it came to healing items, but eventually I got all that sorted and went and found my armor. This made me feel absolutely fantastic. This armor set is probably the best one in the entirety of Fallout besides the Enclave power armor, and I will not be taking any arguments to dissuade my opinion. After that, I went ahead and got to work on going to, fight Kellogg, which I figured would be fun, but since I really didn't know what faction to side with this run, I figured the Minutemen were the best bet for an NCR Ranger, considering the NCR would not work with the Brotherhood. I highly doubted that they would support the Institute, and I figured they most likely wouldn't really appreciate the subtlety of the Railroad, so the Minutemen, being kind of a militarist faction in the game, made the most sense for me to join this run, so I went back to Concord and started clearing out all the Raiders, the Deathclaw, everybody that Preston had issues with, and got all the Minutemen set up and headed over to Sanctuary so that I could go take care of them later. Now, I didn't really plan on doing the Minutemen quest lines right now. I wanted to go advance the main quest pretty much as far as possible before needing to pick a faction. Fort Hagen wasn't all that bad, other than the ridiculous amount of gunners and raiders that just spawned here for some reason due to, again, difficulty enhancing mods that just spawn more enemies pretty much everywhere. I ended up finding a legendary 9-iron on an enemy, which is kind of ironic considering I planned my next run to be New Vegas with the 9-iron, so that was pretty fun and kind of just weird that I found that out of everything in the game. Not even sure why it was here. I'm guessing it has something to do with one of my New Vegas mods that I have added to Fallout 4. You'll notice that I do have an assault carbine as well here. I ended up picking one up from, I believe, Arturo, or maybe I found it on an enemy. I honestly don't remember where I got it, but it was pretty fun, and I also figured the NCR would be using, assault weapons from the Gunrunners. I seem to remember vaguely about something that the NCR and the Gunrunners have like an alliance and they give each other stuff. I'm not entirely great at Fallout lore, so we're just gonna, kind of ignore anything that I say about that. Anyways, with Kellogg dead, pretty much instantaneously, the Ranger Sequoia is overpowered as hell, the Brotherhood arrived, and then my recording crashed. I didn't really pay attention, so I ended up losing about 45 minutes of stuff that I did due to not being recording at the time. I didn't really miss anything important, though. It was mostly just random enemy encounters and me doing dialogue with Nick and Dr. Amari and all that. I ended up starting recording again when I made it to the memory den and started going through Kellogg's memories, and there was no more issues for the rest of the run, which is absolutely fantastic. Well, on my recording side anyways, but we'll get to that later. Of course, after that, it was time to go to the Glowing Sea, and to the Glowing Sea I went. I also decided to just murder all the children of Adam while I was there, and then karma hit me like a bitch, and I got harassed by a bunch of stingwings for about 20 minutes before, making it to Virgil and dealing with a Deathclaw that also harassed me because I was too stubborn to pull out the Ranger Sequoia and just kill it in 2 shots. Green Tech Genetics is about as hard as always. The Gunners are a pain in the ass when it comes to dealing with them just because of how much damage I've added to them over time with mods. It's quite scary when I have an armor set that supposedly has about 200 ballistic resistance, yet I'm dying in about 5 to 6 shots from basically everything. Honestly, I need to install a death counter on some of these runs when I've been dying just more times than I can really remember. I think I died on this run probably 20 plus times just due to random things killing me, but eventually I made it up to the Courser, who died pretty much instantaneously, just like Kellogg. The Ranger Sequoia at this point, with all the perks that I had, was dealing like close to 200 damage, which is pretty damn unbalanced again, but I mean, I don't really care. This run's not really meant to be challenging, it's just meant to be entertaining. I mean, the beginning of the run was pretty challenging, but when I made it to the railroad, for some reason, the door was just open. I have no idea what happened there. I didn't input the code, so I figured why not just fire blindly and kill them all. Now, might not be the best morals for an NCR Ranger to have, just killing random civilians, but I figure, well, they're not allied to me, so they can probably die. It was either that or just, death by taxes and a bunch of other bureaucrat stuff. Anyways, moving back on to dealing with the main quest, I went back to Sanctuary for a little bit and helped Sturgis out by scrapping a bunch of stuff in the area, and then setting up, the beds, the water, the food, all that, talking to Preston to get all the dialogue out of the way, blah, blah, blah. The Minuteman questline is probably my least favorite out of any faction quest in Fallout history. That includes the Brotherhood from New Vegas as well. It includes basically everything, considering I have to help settlers, which is not something I love to do, because it makes me go do things out of my way that are really unnecessary to the run, so I mostly just murder them so that I can get on with the challenge. Anyways, I got the signal interceptor built and was able to finally get myself into the Institute. Figured the NCR probably wouldn't really agree with the Institute all that much, so I figured they were fair game for me to just kind of slaughter, so that's exactly what I did. I gunned Father down in cold blood, and then fought some synths on my way out so that I could escape the Institute and go back to working with the Minutemen. The assault carbine that I had set up with a couple different commando perks, as well as, better receivers, all that, was doing pretty good damage against the synths, though not all of them were armored. For some reason, when I got out, I decided to just randomly start picking off raiders from a distance with the medicine stick that I found. It's from one of the New Vegas uniques added into the Commonwealth mod, but it kind of sucks. For some reason, the damage on it is a little broken. It was doing like 30 damage, even with a couple levels of the Rifleman perk. So I'm not entirely sure what the deal was there, because it seemed like a worse, lever action from Far Harbor, so it really didn't see that much use during this run. Also, this is conveniently where the game broke. I got the quest finally to go, take back the castle, and for some reason, every single goddamn run I do with the Minutemen, the game has to break. This run was no different. The Minutemen started out by being hostile to me for no reason, so I reloaded an old save and had to clear the castle all over again, and kill the Mirelurk Queen for a second time. After that, I couldn't get Ronnie Shaw to show up for about an hour. I tried getting more settlements, I tried waiting, I tried sleeping, I tried AFKing for 45 minutes to see if she would randomly show up. So I reloaded an old save and took back the castle yet again. And then I went off and she still wouldn't show up, so I went off and started getting more settlements to just hopefully trigger it. I had enough settlements for the Minutemen questline at this point, since I'd went and, placed beacons at everything that I should have already needed. So I went back and did it again, and then she finally showed up after an unrelated period of time where I just spent like 4 days sleeping. With her finally showing up, I went down into the armory and started clearing out all the enemies down there, the turrets, the random mod enemies that showed up down there. Sarge died in I think 2 shots. He was pretty pathetic. All the enemies on this run were pretty pathetic. Again, this weapon isn't necessarily meant to be bad, the run is meant to just be kind of entertaining this time around. With all that finally out of the way, I could go back to Preston and trigger the Defend the Castle quest, which for some reason worked flawlessly this time around. The synths showed up when they were supposed to show up, the defenses were working like they were supposed to, the NPCs weren't glitching out like they were supposed to. I was just finally able to do one Minuteman quest in one of these Minuteman runs that didn't break on me. And this was extremely chaotic. I didn't know what was happening half the time. I was just kind of running around trying not to get two-shot by Institute weapons, trying to keep some of the NPCs alive, repairing turrets, whatever it may be. This was purely chaotic, and I absolutely love this quest, specifically just for that. This quest is one of the funner ones when it comes to just mindlessly slaughtering a bunch of enemies, so I appreciate it for that alone. After that, I got to talk to Preston one last time to finally let me know that it was time to go take on the Institute. My frames had a stroke when I got to the CIT ruins area. I don't know why they just had such an issue there, but we're just gonna pretend it didn't happen and move on, because Fallout 4 is perfect in every way, and Bethesda does not make games that have bugs in them. Once I got past all the synths and I could relay the boys into the Institute to help me take down all of the bad people that were labeled as traitors by the NCR, I got to work clearing out synths, turrets, robots, whatever was in my way, and pushing my way forward to the main rotunda area, where I would deal with even more synths and more invisible gorillas. Still haven't figured out why my gorillas are just invisible in these runs. I honestly have no idea what's going on there. And I made it through pretty much everything that I needed to get to Father. I was planning on having a nice civil discussion with him before shooting him in the head, but I kind of forgot that I gunned him down in cold blood earlier in the run, so I just deactivated the defense systems and then headed into the Applied Sciences Division, I believe, to attach the fusion pulse charge, and then finally get out of the Institute. First things first though, I told the kid to piss off because he's a robot, tried to shoot him in the head, which did not work, blew up the Institute, and that was that. The run was done. This run had a myriad of problems, but I finally beat Fallout 4 as an NCR Ranger. We're going to ignore the fact that I had to troubleshoot the main questline for about 2 hours before the run would let me do so, because Fallout 4, I absolutely hate when it does this, so this is why I don't really side with the Minutemen anymore, but that's that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to help support the channel. I appreciate it immensely. And as always, if you have suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. I always look forward to seeing what you guys make up to torture myself with, and it's the highlight of my day reading through random comments on YouTube. As always though, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.